claiming 297 Taliban fighters killed. UN chief called for immediate ceasefire. President Donald Trump tells U.S. government agencies to immediately stop using Anthropic's technology after the AI startup rejects Pentagon's demand that it to agree to unconditional military use of its Claude model.
With us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
Donald Trump suggests a possible friendly takeover of communist-led Cuba as tensions rise between Washington and Havana, saying Cuba is in trouble and in talks with U.S. officials. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton denies any wrongdoing in a congressional probe into his ties with Jeffrey Epstein. Republican committee chair calls the opposition productive. Democrats renew calls for Trump to be questioned. UN Security Council lifts sanctions on HTS, the Islamist armed group formerly led by Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa. HTS, alongside other rebel groups, toppled Syrian strongman Bashar al-Assad in 2024. A tram derails and smashes into a building in Milan, killing 2 people and injuring at least 30 others. Accident occurs shortly after 2026 Winter Olympics as the city prepares for the Paralympics. India-EU agreed to grant each other most favored nation status for 5 years as part of a draft free trade deal, locking in WTO-aligned terms and easing tariffs on most goods to boost bilateral trade ties. Pakistan says it has launched widespread airstrikes inside Afghanistan, targeting key Taliban military installations. Claiming to be in open war with its neighbor, Pakistan says it is in response to cross-border offensive by Afghan forces. As heavy fighting continues along the border, the United States has expressed Pakistan's right to defend itself, while the United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire. As tensions escalate, Pakistan says it carried out aerial strikes on 29 locations across Afghanistan, including the capital, Kabul, and the Taliban stronghold of Kandahar. Now, according to Pakistani officials, 297 Taliban officials and militants were killed. They also claim 89 checkposts were destroyed, 18 were captured, and 136 tanks and armored vehicles were taken out. Afghan Taliban reported that at least 19 civilians were killed in the provinces of Khost and Paktika.
Following their attacks, according to the casualty figures we have collected up to this morning, we have 13 Mujahideen martyred in this fighting and 22 wounded. In one area, 13 civilians were also wounded. Current reports indicate that in Paktika, civilians have also suffered casualties, with several people killed and injured, but the exact number is not yet confirmed.
The clashes force the closure of the Torkham border crossing, a vital trade route between Pakistan and Afghanistan, leaving long lines of trucks loaded with goods stranded on the roads. Residents described it as a night of terror as shelling forced children and family to flee in panic.
What happened last night was horrific. The Taliban fired heavily from the Afghan side. causing immense suffering to the women and children here.
Now, Afghan Taliban responded with fresh strikes on Pakistani border posts in Kusht and Paktika. Local media reported mortars fired into civilian areas. Afghanistan's Taliban-led defense ministry has released satellite footage showing strikes on multiple compounds inside Pakistan, according to a report. Targets including a military camp near Faizabad and Islamabad, a headquarters in Nowshera, and facilities in Jamrud and Abbottabad. Pakistani officials, however, reportedly claimed that drones were intercepted by air defense systems with no casualties reported. In the Jaji Maidan district of Kusht province, Taliban armed forces have positioned D-10 howitzer artillery with munitions near the Pakistan border. The deployment follows clashes between Taliban fighters and Pakistani border forces, raising fears of further escalation along the frontier.
The operations carried out by our Mujahideen, thank God, were highly successful, and a large number of Pakistan posts were destroyed. If Pakistan once again takes such an action, we are ready once more, with our lives and our wealth.
Meanwhile, the United States has expressed support for Pakistan's right to defend itself against Taliban attacks, but UK, the United Nations and the Red Cross are urging immediate de-escalation. Diplomats from China, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are working behind the scenes to calm tensions. Iran has also weighed in, calling on both sides to respect sovereignty and refrain from further escalation. Now, the U.S. mission has issued a security advisory in Pakistan. It has warned that due to heightened tensions, Pakistani security forces have increased their presence in major cities. It claimed that law enforcement facilities, military installations, and major commercial centers remained likely targets for terrorist organizations. It also urged American citizens to exercise caution when visiting these locations, especially during peak hours. Now, tensions between Iran and U.S. continue to intensify. The Oman-mediated nuclear talks have failed to achieve any breakthrough. Iran has urged the U.S. to drop its excessive demands in order to reach a deal. While another round of talks are expected to be held next week, the American Armada is now closer to Iran than it has been over the past 1 month. Our next report tells you more. Take a look.
Temperatures are rising in West Asia. A war between Iran and the US looks imminent, with the American Armada inching ever closer to Iran. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, has arrived at Haifa at Israel's northern coast. The USS Abraham Lincoln, on the other hand, is in the Arabian Sea near Iran. The location of the two warships is quite strategic. While the Gerald R. Ford seems positioned to shield Israel and American bases in the region from an Iranian retaliation, the USS Abraham Lincoln seems to be in position to inflict maximum damage to Tehran. The USS Gerald R. Ford is a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered giant. It's capable of launching more sorties per day than any carrier before it. It is armed with 75+ stealth fighters, surveillance aircraft, and electronic warfare systems. The warship has around 5,000 personnel on board. Built at a cost of $13.3 billion, it's powered by 2 nuclear reactors. It is a floating fortress designed to dominate sea and sky. The USS Abraham Lincoln is equally lethal. With around 60+ fighter jets and 5,000 to 6,000 personnel on board, it is one of America's most advanced carriers. Traveling at a speed of 56 kilometers an hour with a massive displacement of 100,000 tons, the warship is expected to play a key role in executing American strikes on Iran. As the possibility of attacks loom large, the US has issued a travel advisory for its embassy staff in Israel. China too has asked its citizens to leave Iran as soon as possible. The Pentagon has activated its first kamikaze drone unit, known as Task Force Scorpion in West Asia. Like the USS Gerald R. Ford, this unit is now operational and on standby if Trump orders strikes on Iran. The world is now watching with bated breath. A minor spark could lead to a full-blown war, one whose ripples will be felt across the world. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Now, France has warned that if a drone sighting near its aircraft docked in Sweden turned out to be Russian, then it would be a provocation. And this after Sweden said one of its Navy vessels had spotted and jammed the drone that was 13 kilometers from France's Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier. Swedish defense minister suggested that the drone was probably of Russian origin. French foreign minister stressed that the drone could never have posed any real threat to the vessel.
If indeed, as the Minister of Defense suggested, there is a potential Russian origin for this incident, the only conclusion I would draw is that this is it would be a ridiculous provocation.
Russia has claimed that the claims made by Sweden is absurd. Swedish authorities say its Navy jammed the drone using electronic signals to attempt to break the connection between the aircraft and its operator or disrupt its navigation tools. The French Navy's flagship and its escort made a port call on Wednesday for the first time in Swedish port of Malmö before joining NATO exercises. Remember, the nearby Baltic Sea is a theater of rivalry between Russia and the NATO alliance. Countries now, NATO's easternmost countries have reported numerous drone sightings in recent months, with some pointing the finger at Russia. And even as Washington celebrates a new post-war Gaza, a very different story is unfolding on the ground. U.S. President Donald Trump is pushing for a vision of a Hamas-free Gaza, backed by billions in reconstruction funds and an international stabilization force. But documents now reveal Hamas may be playing a deeper role, longer game, preparing a shadow government, infiltrating civilian structures, and quietly tightening its grip on the Strip. Is this a transition of power or a takeover in disguise? We decode what is happening on ground in this next report. Take a look.
As President Trump declares there is peace in Gaza, Hamas appears to be building a parallel reality inside the Strip. The plan in Washington sounds clear. A technocratic national committee for the administration of Gaza will take over civil governance. Hamas will step back, international forces will step in, and billions will flow for reconstruction. But according to internal documents seen by the Times of Israel, Hamas has no intention of letting go. Not really. The group is preparing what can only be described as a shadow government. Files are being handed over, but copies are being kept. Military commanders from the Al-Qassam brigades are being reassigned into civilian posts. Though 4 months into a ceasefire, Israel still holds over half the Strip, yet nearly 2 million Gazans remain in areas effectively under Hamas influence. A 2022 video released by IDF shows Hamas leaders simulating what would become the October 7th attack. The video shows a war room, maps, phones, and commanders coordinating drills. Speaking in the Israeli parliament, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that there is no place for terrorism in the world.
Carry with me the deepest condolences of the people of India for every life lost and for every family whose world was shattered in the barbaric terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7.
As the Trump's Board of Peace begins to take shape, the big question is, who really controls the road ahead? This is not just a rebuilding story. It is a power struggle in the shadows of Gaza.
While emphasizing that India is the fastest growing among the world's major economies, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has begun his 4-day visit to India. He is currently in the financial capital of India, in Mumbai today at about 9:45 a.m. local time. The Prime Minister will visit a local cultural exhibition. At 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon, he will participate in the Innovation Showcase and interact with university researchers. Later at 7 p.m. in the evening, he will deliver remarks and take part in a featured discussion at the India-Canada Growth and Investment Forum. Canada's Foreign Minister Anita Anand, who is accompanying Carney on the India visit, has described the Canada-India relationship as broad and wide-ranging. She said both the countries are working to push along a number of metrics, including public safety, agriculture, AI, energy, and critical minerals, and people-to-people ties. Officials say Prime Minister Mark Carney is likely to sign a 10-year uranium supply agreement valued at about $2 billion US. He's also expected to conclude smaller agreements in areas such as oil and gas, environment, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, education, and culture. The visit is being seen as a significant step towards repairing ties between India and Canada, nearly 2.5 years after relations were strained under former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He had alleged the Indian government agents were involved in the killing of pro-Khalistan separatist figure in Canada. And to give us more details, our Assistant Editor of Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, has sent us this report.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has started his Indo-Pacific visit from India. In Mumbai, he will be, of course, holding several meetings later today, but essentially the big focus remains as to give and build on the reset that was started with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit last year here in Canada for the G7 Canada Summit. Now, both sides are rebuilding the fractured relationship with focus on energy, on trade, giving a push to the SEPA trade agreement as well. And Mark Carney, of course, travels to Australia and Japan. His policy is largely about diversification, where India fits in. The policy comes at a time when Donald Trump's policies across the world and here in Canada are making huge ripples, including, of course, his comments terming the Canadian leadership as governor and Canada as a state is something that has caused a lot of heartburn here in this country. Siddhant Sibal for WION in Montreal, Canada.
And the European Union have agreed in a draft trade deal to grant each other most favored nation status for 5 years once the pact takes effect. And this comes as part of a much anticipated free trade agreement between New Delhi and Brussels. After nearly 20 years of negotiations, India and the EU are close to finalizing a landmark free trade agreement, often called the mother of all deals. The deal will create a market of roughly 2 billion consumers, linking India and the world's fourth largest economy with the EU and then the second largest economic bloc. Now, together they account for about 25% of global GDP and roughly 1/3 of global trade. Bilateral goods trade with the EU already stands at about $135 billion in 2024, making India's largest trading partner. And let's break down what most favored nation status means and why it matters. Now, most favored nation, or MFN, is a key principle in international trade. What it means is neither side can offer more favorable tariff treatment to another country during the next 5 years. And simply put, India and the EU must treat each other at least as well as they treat any other trading partner. Under the draft deal, about 93% of Indian exports will enter the EU duty-free once the pact is in force. European imports from luxury cars to wine and processed foods will also face lower tariffs in India once the agreement is operational. The draft also includes provisions to prevent new trade barriers beyond WTO rules, boost digital trade cooperation, and align food safety and customs procedures for smoother commerce. The agreement still needs a final legal approvals on both sides, and the exact implementation timeline is not finalized. But experts say this could be one of the most significant trade deals India has ever entered, with potential to reshape markets, lower costs, and expand opportunities for businesses and consumers alike. Well, holders India take on two-time winners West Indies on Sunday in their biggest match of the tournament so far. India's final Super 8 clashes is now effectively a quarter-final match. Sunday's encounter will be the first time the two sides meet in the T20 World Cup since 2016, when West Indies thrashed India by 7 wickets in Mumbai to reach the final. India started the match as favorites, not because they are the home team, but because of the sheer talent they have in their squad. With the likes of Abhishek Sharma and Hardik Pandya, India boast some of the biggest hitters in the game. When it comes to power hitting, West Indies are not much behind India. We saw how they recovered from 83 for 7 against South Africa to post 176 for 8. Romario Sheffield and Jason Holder added 89 runs. The highest 8th wicket stand in the history of T20 World in T20 Internationals. So with the 66 sixes, West Indies have set a new T20 World Cup record. India are not far behind with 63 sixes. Now that brings us to the bowling departments. Despite India boasting a better set of options on paper, they have only managed to bowl their opposition out twice in this World Cup. Pakistan in Colombo and Namibia in Delhi. Their 6th bowling option looks like their Achilles heel. Traditionally, Shivam Dube has been India's 6th bowling option, but against Zimbabwe, Dube conceded 46 runs in 2 overs. And overall, in his 9.2 overs, he has conceded 124 runs at an economy rate of 13.28. Now, which makes India's 6th bowling option a potential area of concern going into Sunday's clash, especially against a West Indies lineup that thrives on targeting the 5th and 6th bowlers. With the match set to be played at the Eden Gardens in Kolkata, where the boundaries aren't that big, West Indies' sheer 6 hitting prowess could turn out to be India's biggest worry. And a new stage musical is bringing the story of a wonder to life, putting kindness and courage at the heart of its message. The show follows a young boy with facial differences as he steps into school for the very first time. More about it next story. We'll leave you with the support. Do stay tuned. News and updates will follow on the other side. You're watching WION The World. Stay tuned.
had 28 surgeries, and I've had 13. That's a lot less compared to Augie, but it is still a lot, and I can perfectly relate to him because they are hard to go through, but they help you a lot in the end.
where darkness hides behind every corner, where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders, psychopaths who defy explanation, international war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION. World is One.
On this episode of WION Drive, Miraj's notions about EVs get a reality check with the MG Cyberster.
Ready, set,
and a new petrol Tata Safari. Diksha gets driven about in a long wheelbase BMW 5 Series and finds true love in the Toyota Hilux. Coming up on this episode of WION Drive.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is One.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Diksha Bisla. Let's start this bulletin by quickly taking a look at the headlines. Pakistan's defense minister reminds Afghan Taliban leader Sirajuddin Haqqani of Islamabad's past support during anti-Soviet war. Urges Afghan authorities to prevent their territory from being used against Pakistan. A Bolivian military C-130 Hercules cargo plane carrying banknotes crashed while landing near La Paz, killing at least 15 and injuring 30 others. Plane veers off the runway at El Alto International Airport, crashing into an avenue and damaging vehicles.
Well, we haven't made a final decision. We're not exactly happy with the way they're negotiating. They cannot have nuclear weapons.
Donald Trump says he is not thrilled with Iran's stance in talks as the country has not met U.S. demands. He calls for no nuclear enrichment but says he has not made a final decision on attacking it.
but they're talking with us. And maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
Donald Trump suggests a possible friendly takeover of communist-led Cuba as tensions rise between Washington and Havana, saying Cuba is in trouble and in talks with U.S. officials. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton denies any wrongdoing in a congressional probe into his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Republican committee chair calls deposition productive. Democrats renew calls for Trump to be questioned. Gaza Civil Defense Agency says Israel strikes killed at least 7 people. A drone strike in Khan Yunis killed 3 people. 2 others were killed by Israeli fire in Beit Lahia, while a strike in central Gaza killed 1 more.